What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Bronx Pinstripes show. We're like less than 36 hours away from the trade deadline. I don't know. I was trying to do that mental math in my head, and I couldn't do it. It's Tuesday at 6 p.m. is the trade deadline. Yankees didn't do anything trade deadline wise over the weekend. A big name, obviously. Castillo was traded. We'll talk about that to the team the Yankees are about to play. They also couldn't complete the sweep against the just absolutely pitiful Kansas City Royals. The defense from the Royals was just laughable all weekend. Just anytime the Yankees were threatening, the Royals defense was like, yeah, sure, here's a few runs for you. But they couldn't complete it with the Holmes blown save. Scott, what's up?
What's up? Yeah, the defense is bad for Kansas City and got worse, I guess, with Benintendi leaving as well. But they would have had the series, this season sweep, right? So if they had won this last game, which they should have won, they would have taken the entire season from them. But they couldn't finish it off. That's okay. They won the series, another big series win. Keep trucking along, keep getting healthy, and make a move, Cash. Let's make a move because Castillo no longer on. I'm excited to talk about what that trade was and see what it, I guess, could have been if it were the Yankees, if the Yankees had gone to the levels that Seattle went to. But I thought that Luis Castillo was going to be it was going to be far-fetched because I didn't believe that the Yankees were going to go with their highest guys to get him. So I never really had my hopes on him, to be honest. We'll see what he can do.
The Mariners gave up their number 1, 3, and 5 prospects, but if you just do the equivalent of that to the Yankees, it would have been Volpe, Dominguez, and Waldichuk. But Cashman made it clear that Volpe would not be in a deal to the Reds for Castillo. He was trying to do the package around Peraza. The Reds obviously liked the Mariners package the best, and so they got him. A lot of people I saw on Twitter like this is overpayment, huge overpayment. But that's what you're going to get for a top flight starting pitcher at the deadline. That's
Who's
just
controlled for another year.
Yeah, that's the going price. So I don't necessarily think that the Mariners overpaid. I think that's the premium you have to pay for that. Now, if Brian Cashman decides he's not worth it, we're not willing to give up Volpe for Castillo, and we're going to move on to Frankie Montas or someone else, maybe Rondon from the Giants. I know he's been rumored. Then fine, that's the decision you make. But I don't agree it's an overpayment.
Well, it is an overpayment, but that's just what happens in the middle of the year. That's more to the point. When you are at the trade deadline, the expectation is that you do have to overpay.
You have to overpay, right? Though you can't go on baseball trade values and make it like exactly line up. Like that's not how this thing works.
No, because there's not a full amount there's a select amount of teams that are looking to upgrade their team right now. And especially with pitching, that's when you have a premium. And that's why I would be so surprised, honestly, if a Soto deal got done because of not only the premium that it would take, that almost would have to go away at midseason because it doesn't, what's the difference? And you're limiting yourself to a number of teams. It just feels like they're testing the waters to see what's up, and then the offseason that will happen. That's just my gut. Who knows? Somebody maybe goes crazy and gets him for this year. But yeah, you're gonna overpay. I'm glad the Yankees didn't give up Volpe, Dominguez for Luis Castillo because I feel like I've just seen too many inconsistencies with him over his career that. You would be getting a very good pitcher this year, but there's also those inconsistencies that are very possibly showing up. And does this guy have any experience in late season like high stress moments? No. And what is he? I don't know.
The Reds made the playoffs a couple years ago when they had Bauer and Castillo and Sonny Gray. It was a pretty damn good rotation that they made the play. They didn't do anything in the playoffs, but so if you swap Peraza and Volpe, would you have been more okay with that deal? So Peraza, Dominguez, Waldichuk for Castillo?
I don't think Dominguez was in the conversation. I don't think Volpe was in the conversation. I think it was centered around Peraza and a bunch of other guys.
Well, then they maybe weren't even close if that's the case.
If that's the case, yeah. And I know Logan had pulled up like where the guys line up to Peraza compared to, because it's not a 1-to-1 when you say the 1, 2, 3 guys of each club, right? Because
Volpe is much higher ranked than who is it, Marte for the Mariners. That was their top prospect. But as far as top 100 MLB pipeline goes, Volpe is much higher ranked.
Yeah. So, I think it's still a higher premium for the Yankees if they had given that up. And it's just for Castillo with the control 1 year, and you're giving up what is said you're the next franchise shortstop. Like, I don't know. I don't see it happening. I didn't see Cashman going that deep. I wouldn't even see him going Dominguez, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, but what this deal does is it sets a market for Montes and potentially even Rondon. If you're the Giants and the A's, you're saying, oh, well, the Mariners got this for their pitching that they're trading away. Yeah, maybe Castillo was the top, but Montes is the second. So we got to get close to that package.
If Rondon's available, that's who I want. That's the guy I want. If Rondon is available, and you could get him for Peraza plus, probably. Huh?
The Giants are shopping him. I mean, all reports are that the Giants are looking to move their veteran.
As long as all these people reporting and all these reports are accurate, and that's what's happening, then that's who I would put my laser focus on. He's more of a veteran guy. I feel like he's been around the block a little bit. He's having a hell of a year. Just whooped my ass in fantasy yesterday on Logan's team, and he feels like the better fit to this team. And I have a feeling you could get him for, pennies on the dollar compared to what Castillo, which is crazy because he might be the better pitcher right now.
I saw a tweet this morning from Mark Gooden, who is New York Mets beat writer, and he said, with DeGrom threatening to opt out of his deal after the season, there are some within the Mets front office who want to trade DeGrom as a rental to a contender.
That's ridiculous. First of all,
add in DeGrom to the rental market for pitching.
He's their own rental then, if that's the case. He's coming back from.
Yeah, but if he's gonna opt out and they're not gonna sign him, their pitching staff has been pretty good with him on the shelf, so they could get a bat for him.
Yeah, that would be a very Mets
even
move.
A high prospect.
Great, that would be a great Mets move,
wouldn't it? Wouldn't it be such a Mets such a Mets move?
It would be hilarious.
Trade him to a contender and then have to face him in the playoffs and get their bats shoved.
That makes absolutely no sense. The guy's literally about to make his first start, coming back I think on Tuesday, and
you can't do it because
if you're
the Mets, all you care about is going into a playoff series with DeGrom shirt.
Yeah,
that's all you should care about.
That's exactly it. It's complete fake news. But Rondon now, Logan, does Rondon have any control? Is he a free agent after this year?
So he has an opt-out at the end of the year.
They signed him to probably exercise.
Yeah, he's most likely going to exercise it. I know when they signed him, he was one of those late signs, like that Boris. I think he's a Boris client. Yeah, he is.
If he's Boris guy,
so he was one of those like
guy.
Late. Yeah.
He's having a good season.
2 year, $44 million deal, but he's got the opt out after this year. So
okay,
so he's a rental. He's another rental.
Fine. I would rent rent the shit out of him.
Yeah, it's gonna be a cheaper rental.
Yeah,
obviously.
And really, he's more of a proven guy. He's more of a proven guy, and I don't know, for whatever reason it feels like he's a better fit for this team. So if he's available, I'm Cashman, I'm going right after him.
And it's not just the starting rotation that clearly needs backup. It probably the bullpen too, because my eye test has been telling me Clay Holmes had been struggling. Every time he's out on the mound, there's 2 or 3 base runners that are behind him. But the numbers really prove that out. And if we start back at that Cincinnati meltdown before the All-Star break, where we were all just assuming, hey, this is a fluke. Holmes had been so dominant, the best relief pitcher in baseball up until that point, where he just completely lost it. Since then, over 6 1/3 innings, he's had 16 base runners. It's just, you cannot be an effective closer. You can't be an effective pitcher with that many base runners, and it's a real problem right now for him.
So I know I've been saying this with the team in general, and looking at the month of July as a team slump, and Clay Holmes is very much available for a slump, right? He's got to go through it at some point. So I'm hoping that this is a mechanical issue, like we're seeing with some of these other guys. Ironically enough, Chapman's starting to look better in the the middle innings as he's going, and you're hearing when they're talking about this too. You're hearing just comments from Blake and even Cone talking about it. It is mechanical. It's a matter of finding those delivery points, making sure that you're able to repeat them time and time again. And it's possible that Clay Holmes also is missed his spots because he's off mechanically. And I just, at this point, what we have to look at is Matt Blake is making the next adjustments, right? It's on the coaching staff to identify and then to fix. It's obviously on the player as well, but it's on the coaching staff to figure out why, work with the player to fix, and then the player to execute. And sometimes that doesn't take, one outing or two outings or three outings, as we're seeing with Chapman and even Loizaga, who's looked better. These guys, it takes time for them to get that mechanical muscle memory back so that they can start hitting their spots consistently.
It's the control.
That's what I'm seeing. I mean, usually when you're out of the strike zone, you're mechanically off.
Yeah, it's the control for Holmes. He's fallen behind every hitter. He's walking a ton of batters. He's only had one appearance since that Cincinnati blown save where he has not walked at least one batter. And that was his big problem before he came to the Yankees, was his control. And you're right. Chapman has been really good. It's only been 3 straight appearances, but in those 3 innings, he hasn't allowed a hit and struck out 4. And it was an outing at Citi Field and then 2 outings against the Royals. So we all know where this is going, right?
It's going to Aroldis Chapman at some point. Look,
what's the date?
Boone cannot.
August 9th.
It's August 1st. It's nice and clean.
No, I'm saying August 9th. By August 9th, who's the closer on the Yankees?
Oh, I still think it's Clay Holmes. If I'm Aaron Boone, there's no way I could just flip flop back and forth. You can't be this guy that flip flops back and forth
snap.
With what you say and what you see. Baseball is such a long game that you can't overcompensate or overreact to something that's happening in the moment. And that's exactly what we're seeing with Clay Holmes. Guess what? That sinker, 2-seamer, whatever the hell you want to call it, is still running at 99 miles per hour.
Sure.
The stuff is still there. The velocity is still there. It's a matter of him getting back to his good zone, get back to the Quan as he says in Jerry Maguire. You got to find that Quan, and then now you're in good spot. And that's where he needs to be.
Do you think Chapman gets a chance at a save situation coming up? Because I think he will. I think there'll be a spot that he'll go to him.
I do. And this is what will happen. The flip-flop can't happen. So if you're in a high leverage situation, both guys are available. Clay Holmes needs to be the guy. But what will happen is kind of what Boone had referred to earlier, where fire extinguisher roll. Let's see what happens there. Going after the guy. He even had Clay Holmes in the other night when he was facing the meat of the order in a non-save situation. So we'll see how he plays it out. But as far as like the narrative, it's Clay Holmes is the closer, and if Boone comes off of that for a rough little patch here, then that's not having your guys back at this point after he's had such a phenomenal year.
My cynical spidey senses are sniffing a phantom IL for Clay Holmes coming up in the next couple of weeks, and they will use that as the opportunity to do the flip-flop and get Chapman back into the closer role. And then when Clay Holmes comes back, he will be the fireman, 7th, 8th, whatever it is, whatever the big leverage situation is that they need him in. That is my understanding this Yankees organization and how they operate. That's what I'm thinking is going to happen.
They can't really do that at this point. They're not at a point in the bullpen where they could just have the luxury to IL a guy for minimum 10 days just to get this thing over with. And who's to say that you throw Chapman back into that spot and he doesn't melt down completely? Now you don't have Clay Holmes available at all. Marinaccio, was given the 8th inning last night, didn't work out as well. And who knows where that's going to end up. So I don't think the Yankees have the luxury to do that. Just based on a little bit of a slump, unless something actually is wrong with him physically. Otherwise, I can't possibly see that.
This obviously is not the same Aroldis Chapman over the past couple of years, but this is not new with Chapman. He loses his closer role temporarily, and then he gets put back into that role. This happened last year as well, in the middle of the season, where after being so good through the first 2 months, he was so bad over the next month, he got pulled out of the closer role, and then he got put back in it by around this time.
If you remember, earlier in the year before the season started, we did this thing called bold predictions. Do you remember that? Well, my bold prediction.
I don't think any of us had Clay Holmes on a bold.
No,
prediction.
You're right. We didn't. But I had Johnny Loizaga coming in as the closer. And guess who's rounding back into form just in time to make sure that he's able to if there is a phantom DL or IL, sorry, don't yell at me. If there's a phantom IL, then and Chapman gets put back in, we all know what might happen. He might slip up, and who's going to be there? Old Johnny Loizaga ready to go with his mechanics back in, slotting into that ninth inning, might just steal it out of nowhere. Might just steal it.
You think David Robertson purchased his flight to New York yet?
I had a dream that he was on the team yesterday. That this already had happened, and
spotted at
LaGuardia? that was a foregone conclusion. And I even had someone that was being sent over, and now I cannot remember who that was. Now that I'm,
Oh, you had the whole package. You
I had an entire package. It was I had a rating and everything on it. But David Robertson was back in pinstripes in my dream. So we'll see if it was actually just a dream or a premonition.
It was a disappointing loss on Sunday because Rizzo had the massive home run to give them the lead late in the game. So you're thinking, okay, we're going to close this out and it's not going to be a problem. And obviously it didn't work out that way. The offense overall, we're going to talk about Judge. So put Judge aside for right now. DJ's been really, really good. Rizzo had the big home run, and I think he also had a home run on Friday night. But if you go back to that Thursday game, before Judge's walk-off, the team had one hit in the entire game. So you're still getting these long stretches of inconsistency and just absolutely nothing from this offense. That was Benintendi's first game. He went 0 for 4 in that game. Benintendi hasn't really done much since he got there. I'm not gonna crush him for that yet. But I'm still looking for this offense to turn back into that consistent force that it was in the first half of the season, and I have not seen it.
Once Benintendi gets going here, first of all, he has walked. I think he walked 5 times over the weekend, so he's been getting on base. You see how he fits into this team so very well, and they've played him in leadoff at the 5 spot. They've popped him around all over the place. He's another lefty bat that they can get that balance at multiple places in the lineup. With him, you got IKF, you got LeMay, who's absolutely on fire. He's not been very good. He's been on fire. He's been very, very much the MVP type DJ LeMay that we saw a couple years ago. The guy is hitting on all cylinders right now. So I fully expect this lineup. Of any worry that there is around this team, the offense and the lineup is the lowest of all low. We have a guy flirting with Barry Bonds' record. We have forget Roger Maris and Babe Ruth. He's on the steroid path right now, with minus the steroids, knock on wood. And we have now multiple people in this lineup who go bat to ball, give some consistency to set up for the big guys. So you get Stanton back in this lineup. You get Benintendi with his feet underneath him. This lineup's filthy, absolutely filthy, and it's set up for multiple scenarios. You grind against a tough guy. You start swinging for the fences about someone that can get that could be exposed, or a bullpen that can be exposed. So I have a lot of confidence in the lineup right now.
Yeah, really, Donaldson's been the weak link in that lineup, and I understand why he's still getting playing time, but he has not been getting the crap that Gallo obviously got. Gallo was the poster child for the struggles in the Yankees offense, but Donaldson's at 2 for his last 26, I think, maybe 2 for his last 27. His average is under 220 for the season. Boone thinks he's close though, so I see it in there. I see it at the plate. I see it. It's going to come out.
The difference between a guy like Joey Gallo and then Josh Donaldson is Donaldson, one, has a track record of hitting the ball really well. Joey Gallo still, for some reason, for how long has he been in the league? However many years he's been in the league, there were too many pitchers that were just hitting his bat. Donaldson can make adjustments. Donaldson can plays a gold glove level defense, and has been very good defensively at third base. So he's proven value on the defensive side already. And there's just more there to say that he's going to come back and he will be, have the ability to get very, very hot, not just one home run every 30 at-bats or 50 at-bats or 60 at-bats, whatever it is.
There was that article in The Athletic about Joey Gallo. Joey Gallo on his time with the Yankees, I didn't live up to expectations. We all know Joey Gallo is not going to be a Yankee very soon. But to hear him talk about his time with the Yankees as if it's in the past while he's still a member of the Yankees is really sad. It's just really sad. And I honestly reading the article kind of felt bad for him. Now, I understand, like, he's going to move on. He's a Major League Baseball player. He's rich, all that stuff. But he said, every time I see a Yankees hat, every time I see a Yankees jersey, it's something I'm going to have to understand. I didn't play well as a Yankee. I wish I had. This is going to eat him up for the rest of his life. For the rest of his life, because he's always going to see Yankees hats and Yankees jerseys because they're the number one brand in baseball. Okay, it's not like, oh, I struggled with the Seattle Mariners. I can pretty much go the rest of my life never seeing a Seattle Mariners hat again. No, you struggle with the New York freaking Yankees, dude. That ain't escaping you.
Do you think that Joey Gallo's catching this at like all the holidays too? Because there's a history there.
Like the family holidays.
The family holidays are like, Joey, come, you were doing this for us.
You know what's worse though? It's not going to be talked about. Everyone's gonna just like, it's the elephant in the room, which is almost even worse.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really feel bad for him. He's got the opportunity. He had the opportunity that I think every single kid in the world, every baseball player in the world wants if you have any kind of fandom towards the New York Yankees. And he just didn't make adjustments. So I don't know what to say, man. A lot of this is on Joey Gallo, I think.
Yeah, he kind of talked about that. Another quote that I pulled from here: when I see my numbers, I feel like I've played better than that. There's a couple of things mechanically that I think I could have been better about monitoring. Baseball is a weird game. You can be doing something slightly wrong, and in baseball, you just start doing it every day, and it starts to become a habit you don't notice. I just feel like something here got out of rhythm, out of whack.
That is such an asinine quote to me. This is your job that you do on a daily basis. Actually, you strike out at a 40% clip. You should probably look at those things every single day. And are you telling me that the coaches are not talking about these gaps? You swing in the same place every single time. Mechanically, you do the same thing every time. I don't understand what he's talking about. See, now I hope that you also have this flip side where when you read that, you're like, do not feel bad for you anymore. You're no longer looking at the details of your swing, the only thing that you're there for. It's crazy. It's lunacy.
Yeah, I think there was probably a mentality, and maybe this was also from the Yankees coaches, where it's just like, no, keep doing what you're doing and you'll get back to being the player you were before you came here.
He's mentioned that was his mentality, which is crazy.
But maybe that just went on way too long.
Yeah, I guess so. I would say that plan backfired if that was truly the plan, and there were no deviations from said plan, then plan didn't work. and
yeah, at a certain point you got to just be like, well, I keep doing this, and it's now 100 plate appearances, 200 plate appearances, 300. It's just like, because if you date back to the middle of last year when he came over to the Yankees, I mean, we're basically talking about a full season of baseball for this guy, and he's been dreadful.
And that's the thing. There was an off season to also fix some stuff too, right? Like it wasn't just this year. I mean, you've had a full half year to get it dialed in, and he's lost, man. He's totally lost. And I don't think he knows how to make adjustments. I think that's part of the problem. I don't think he knows how to make those adjustments.
And so I don't know if it's going to be he's off the roster tomorrow at the deadline, or if they're waiting. It's, obviously no one's going to trade for Gallo. I don't see anyone trading for Gallo. So at that point, just like, okay, you keep him on the roster until Stanton comes off of the IL, and then you waive Gallo. I don't see another path forward for this.
I don't know how he could possibly be on the team when Stanton's back, because at that point you're giving up a defensive guy in that can play all positions and run the bases late in game and all of those things. He's not that guy.
Yeah, when Stanton comes back, he'll be the DH, and then that obviously is with Donaldson playing so poorly. You probably have Donaldson on the bench, and now obviously things can change between now and October, but that's the immediate, best lineup is Stanton designated hitter, Judge, Hicks, Benintendi in the outfield, and then DJ's at third base. So it'll be interesting. Hopefully Stanton comes back and is not dealing with the health problems for the rest of the year, because that's always obviously a possibility. You mentioned Judge is now just not chasing Roger Maris, but also chasing Bonds. So going into yesterday, he was on pace for 67 home runs. He didn't hit a home run on Sunday, so he's probably on pace for 66 home runs now. Bonds has 73. It's an outside chance at Bonds. What I hope happens is we get another hot week or 8 or 9 or 10 days from Judge, and then we can go into the last weeks of the season where it's like, oh, he actually has a chance to hit 74 home runs, because that would be freaking awesome in the last week.
So the 74 is really interesting, because if he were to do that, then I don't know how much attention it's going to get for 61 outside of New York, and because of all of the Sosa and McGuire and Bonds that are ahead of him. But you're right, that last week, if he's even close to it, it'll be very interesting, especially understanding where the Yankees are with that number 1 spot and Houston, if God willing, if everything is trending in that direction, knock on wood again. But that will be a lot of fun. Do you think it'll be a distraction though? Do you think that's not something that they want? I'm surprised that you want it, to be honest, like in the last week of the season, as the Yankees are looking at what playoffs look like.
That's must-watch. This has been must-watch TV, though. What Judge has been doing over the past 2 weeks, like every at-bat over the weekend, I made sure to at least be watching on my phone. Like, yeah, I might have been listening to the game, but when Judge was coming up, I made sure to watch, because he's must-watch TV. That is
right.
must-watch
I agree.
TV.
I love it, and I don't think it bothers him. Here's the thing. If you have a guy like Judge who's mentally strong and mentally you can handle this, which I do believe he can, that's where it's to me no problem. It depends on the type of person. I think he's got the exact personality and the exact makeup that could be in a situation like this and it not affect him even in the slightest. And honestly, like, even if he's not going for the home run every single time pressing, I could see him handling this very well.
Yeah, what you don't want to see happen is him to expand the strike zone and try and hit home runs, because even Flaherty made this point. Judge is going to start to see a lot of breaking balls in fastball counts, because pitchers don't want to get beat by Judge. When you're this good and this hot, it's like, no, a pitcher's not going to give in to you. It doesn't matter the game situation. So as long as Judge just because you still want the team to win and him to do the things that's best for the lineup. So it's like, you don't want to see him swinging out of his shoes on sliders in the dirt because he's just trying to hit home runs. Then yes, of course, I don't want that to happen. But I mean, we're still another 10 days away of him having, hot play to even really seriously talk about 74 home runs, because 66 to 74 is a big gap. And you can't make that up by just, being okay, like, kind of hot. You got to be blazing hot for 10 more days in order to
what about
sniff mid-70s home runs. And I disagree with you. Sorry, quickly. I disagree with you. I think it's going to be a big deal, because no one's hit 60 home runs since Bonds. Even Stanton a couple years ago hit 59 home runs when he won the MVP for the Marlins. Okay, so 60 home runs is still a crazy number that barely anyone reaches. So, and he's on pace for mid to high 60s in home runs. I think it's going to be a big deal. That would be obviously Maris, but the American League record, like, American National League record, like, who gives a shit? But yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty big deal around baseball if he's in the mid 60s home runs and it's September 17th and he's got 65 home runs.
If he's in the middle of September with that and he's approaching the other numbers, definitely. But I was more posing the question because I hope it is. I do hope it is. I hope that the sports world is looking at those numbers as a little skewed. And historically, the line in the sand was 61 for a very long time, and getting to that without the enhancement of horse steroids is difficult to do. So yes, I hope so. And let me ask you a question: 4 games against the Texas Rangers at the end of the season, might line up for something. There's a doubleheader in there too, so you expect him probably to only play one of those. Well, it depends where he is.
DH both of those days. If he's sniffing the home run record, you DH him those 2 days.
That's that'll be interesting to see where he goes. He lines up into that. It's Baltimore and then Texas, the last 7 games of the year.
All right, so big series with the Mariners. The Mariners can beat everyone except the Astros. Why can no one beat the Astros? I don't know, but the Mariners are a hot team. They obviously just got Castillo, which is huge. Let's preview this series. Game's Monday night, so we can bet on tonight's game. We're going to do it with WinBet, which is now live in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Louisiana, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, Tennessee, and Virginia. They bring the excitement of the Wynn Las Vegas to online sports betting and casino play. From boosted same-game parlays to live in-game odds on every major sport, WinBet has what you need to win. Sign up today to receive a special offer. Bet $50 and win $200 with code XBlueWire. Tonight's game, the over-under is 9 runs, and it's Domingo Germán versus Marco Gonzalez. Germán was pretty solid his last time out against the Mets. He only gave up 2 runs. Marco Gonzalez has been pretty mediocre this year, but I don't know, 9 runs seems high. Given how the things have been going for the Yankees, I don't know that I would take the over on 9 runs.
I definitely would not take the over on that. And plus, Marco Gonzalez is a guy that I've referred to in the past. He's crushed the Yankees at times with Seattle, but also with Baltimore. He's one of those soft throwing lefties that can weave his way around the strike zone pretty well. That said, the Yankees lineup, again, is very balanced and can handle any type of pitcher at this point, in my opinion. So Julio Rodriguez also on the IL, which is unfortunate. I did want to see him this series. I wanted to see him in game action because he's just a fun, exciting guy to watch play baseball. But I'm definitely taking the under on this one. I actually think it's a pretty good bet.
I was thinking, as like when I knew that the Mariners were on the schedule, I was like, the Yankees have had a little juice with the Mariners lately. Then I realized, no, that's just because I've been watching the captain. And it was all 25 years ago. Nothing with the Mariners recently, except bad trades.
You can see why anybody living through that time hates the Mariners too. There was a lot of bad blood between those franchises at that point, and they bother me. Jay Buhner.
And it's Castillo versus Cole on Wednesday, which is a premier matchup, Wednesday afternoon game. All right, we've got a couple mailbag questions, so let's do those. This first one's a little long, so bear with me. It's from Jacob Page. He says, I'm messaging from New Zealand after Game 1 versus the Mets, and despite our strong record, I can't help but feel I've seen this season-long movie before. The Yankees have again started strong and proven they can win plenty of regular games, but in the big games, the ones that show you where you match up with playoff teams, we always fall short. I've been a supporter since 2012, so I appreciate the Yankees championship history. My fandom came afterwards. I'm not sure if Hal is interested in really pushing for postseason success. I think he wants a rock-solid team which makes the playoffs, staying relevant for the business reasons we all know. And then after that, he's accepting the postseason is a lottery. Ultimately, I don't believe this team hits well enough with runners in scoring position to be a threat in the playoffs, and that's been an issue during the Boone era. Home run or bust. He also goes on to say that Boone gets outmanaged in big situations. I wonder if this Jacob Page is my dad's alias, honestly, because these are all points that my dad makes. But the thing I wanted to take away from Jacob's email is Yankees in high leverage and runners in scoring position. And Jacob, thank you so much for listening and for sending in the mailbag question. So I looked up numbers, Yankees with runners in scoring position and high leverage. Their numbers with RISP, 245 batting average, 795 OPS with runners in scoring position. Runners in scoring position, 2 outs, 220 batting average, so slightly lower, but 797 OPS, so just about the same, 2 outs, RISP. Late and close, 211 batting average, 696 OPS. So late and close situations, the OPS drops 100 points, which is huge. With men on base, so any men on base situations, 256 batting average, 816 OPS. That's pretty phenomenal as a team to have an 816 OPS just with men on base. And it's actually much better than just overall team batting. So all situations, which is a 245 batting average and a 775 OPS. So these numbers for just RISP and late and close and men on base, nothing too alarming here. I guess the late and close situation, 696 OPS being over 100 points lower than other situations is pretty bad. But this is where I actually think there are some takeaways. So high leverage, which we've talked about. Fangraphs has their high leverage situation, their measurements. The Yankees are 14th in Major League Baseball with a 104 WRC plus in high leverage situations, so slightly better than league average. When you compare that to the elite teams in baseball, the Dodgers have a 155 WRC plus in high leverage situations. 155 is bonkers. The Astros, who the Yankees are chasing, who we all know you're going to have to go through to win the American League, 122, which is fourth in baseball. So how the Yankees match up to the elite teams in baseball in high leverage situations is nothing good.
Or the Dodgers number is crazy. Yeah, that's just a crazy number. But
Crazy.
Again, I'm surprised it's not closer to those teams, but the way that they have set up the lineup, I know I'm repeating myself with this point, but they're setting themselves up for success late in games and in playoff situations against tough pitching. The way that the lineup is, like, just that's to me what they have done. And I think Brian Cashman has done everything he possibly can, honestly, offensively, to get this lineup in a position to compete with those teams in those high leverage situations. Whether the ball falls, and it, in the right time or not, we'll find out. But I think they're set up for success in these moments.
You're right, because if you go up and down the lineup, who would you feel good about having up in a high leverage situation? Obviously, Judge. Rizzo, I always feel confident in a high leverage situation. He's always going to give a great at bat. LeMahieu, obviously. I now would like to see Benintendi in those situations because he's a bat on ball guy, doesn't strike out. Things are going to happen. Glaber's actually been really good in high leverage situations. So, I wouldn't pick Glaber ahead of any of those other guys that I mentioned. But I'm not, when Glaber walks up to the plate in a big spot, I'm not like, oh shit, let's move on to the next inning type of thing. Carpenter has always given tough at-bats. IKF has been good, as we talked about during the grading episode. And then Trevino also has been pretty good in those situations. That's 8 guys out of 9 that I've just mentioned.
Yeah, are you... And Hicks, who was abysmal early in the season,
still don't feel good about Hicks. I still don't feel good about Hicks.
No, but he's definitely putting a hell of a lot better at bats. And then Donaldson is he's a pro hitter, whether he's struggling or not. Do you walk up with like, oh no, we're screwed when Josh? No, you don't. You don't get that like lifeless, we're screwed mentality really for anybody on the team.
So now we need to see it proven out.
Assuming
we need to see the fact that they're just barely above league average in high leverage situations. Numbers don't lie.
It's true. They don't lie. But, when you're looking at, the late and close numbers or with men on scoring, some of those numbers that you're pointing out
late and close hasn't been good, but the other ones have all been pretty good.
Pretty decent, which is it's kind of a crazy when I look at all of those numbers and then see how far behind we are from the Dodgers in the
I couldn't believe the Dodgers have a 155. As a team to have a 155 in high leverage situations is out of control good. It's insane.
Is their sample size different? Are they in less of those situations?
I was looking it up.
I don't know. It just seems like it's 55% higher is a lot.
And then the other two teams, Logan, I don't want to look it up right now because Fangraphs, whenever we're recording, always freaking crashes my computer. If you could look up the Fangraphs leaderboard for the high leverage situations for team stats. I forget who was 2 and 3, but it was, I think, 2 teams that weren't even in playoff contention. Because again, it's just high leverage situations, which happens in every game. So, yeah, but when you compare, like we just talked about, all those guys who you at least have some level of confidence in going up in a big spot, you compare that to recent seasons where there was maybe 2 guys at any given time. And it's like, oh, if LeMahieu wasn't coming up and here's a big spot, we're screwed. Like, that's not the case anymore.
It's not the case. It's not the case. The confidence level, if we're looking at just the confidence, is pretty high, I'd say, with the majority of the team. And even the guys, like I mentioned, who aren't on your top 6, 7, you're not screwed. You don't get that screwed feeling.
We didn't mention Stanton.
We didn't mention Stanton. Okay, keep going. That's another guy that is fine. Give me up. Just get Joey Gallo off the team, and I'll have a lot of confidence in it at the plate. Basically,
rank the top 3 though, for big spot. Gotta have it. This is the guy I want at the plate. Judge number 1.
It's Judge or LeMahieu. They're freeze frame at the top, I think, but. So Judge, LeMahieu 1, 2, and then probably Rizzo.
Yeah, it's got to be Rizzo. Rizzo just has too many big hits, and I just know that it's going to be a good at bat when Rizzo's up with men on base. I know it's going to be a good at bat.
In a month and a half, we might be saying the same thing about Benintendi, because he's that type of guy who will, he works a lot of walks. Like I said, he worked, I think, 5 walks over the weekend. Didn't get on the hit side, but he was working the count.
Susan stole my "he's the left-handed DJ LeMahieu" tagline because she said it about 5 times over the weekend.
Yeah, I listened to them on Sunday.
All right.
And they're it was good. I mean, John calling people the wrong names. There were a lot of like little things. Like, come on, John.
Yeah.
He said something about a streak in April. We're in July.
All right. The last one is from Steph. Anyone else find it curious that Paulie is one of the only key players from the 90s to not have appeared in The Captain yet? And I don't think he's been a talking head on the Jeter documentary yet. I think this is probably a COVID thing where he's not in studio calling the Yes games because presumably he's not vaccinated. So he probably couldn't go into wherever they were filming because he was not vaccinated. So that is my guess to why he's not appearing on this documentary. I don't think it's anything more than that.
No, I think it's nothing more than that. Everybody's been in person, and yeah, I mean, it's not like they just recorded this either. This has been taped for probably well over a year plus now. So they were doing a lot of this much earlier. So, those were certainly I think for what's happening. But yeah, that's it. That's probably the only reason. We'll see if he shows up in some of the other ones, but there's not much more to it, I don't think.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys so much for listening. That's going to wrap up. Thank you guys, Steph and to Jacob, for the mailbag questions. If you guys want to submit mailbag questions, you can do it at bronxpinstripes.com/podcast. And you can also tweet us and DM us those questions and call the voicemail line at 646-480-0342. Logan, before we wrap it up, anything on those high leverage numbers, or still trying to find them? All right. No problem.
Andrew, a couple quick things, though, on the injury front that we should touch on, which is exciting. Severino is beginning a throwing program, which means they're testing that arm again, which everything is all clear, I guess, in the medicals that allows him to throw, unless they didn't do the MRI like they did a couple years ago. But I don't think they'll make that mistake again. Stanton's nearing baseball activities again, so he's looking to resume at some point. So hopefully the Achilles is feeling much better, and that's not something that they're going to be worried about later on. We'll see how the initial baseball activities and where he gets slotted in. And then this is the craziest one to me. Zach Britton is facing live batters for the first time since Tommy John. And we had talked about the different style of Tommy John that Britton got, where it was a quicker return. They're definitely keeping expectations low from what Boone is talking about as well. But the fact that he is back up throwing to batters at this point is crazy. It really is insane. So if we're able to get a Zach Britton back at some point during this year, I mean, and we're August 1st and he's about to face batters, that tells me that they're definitely going to be, ramping him up to get back and be competing at a high level for this bullpen.
So what you're saying
exciting.
is that if the Yankees don't acquire anyone else at the deadline, they're really acquiring Stanton, Severino, and Britton in the second half of the year.
Definitely. Although the narrative of this team is very different than that of 3 years ago when that was a pain point of a narrative.
All right. Thank you guys for listening. We'll be back at you in a couple days.